It was a dark and stormy night when Megan's car broke down in the middle of nowhere. The rain lashed against the windshield, and the trees lining the deserted road swayed menacingly in the wind. Her phone had no signal, and the nearest town was miles away. She was stranded, alone and scared, as she stared into the darkness. As she thought about what to do next, a pair of headlights appeared in the distance. She felt relieved as the vehicle approached, revealing an old, battered pickup truck. The truck slowed to a stop, and an elderly man with a kind but weathered face leaned out the window. His eyes were shadowed under a wide-brimmed hat, giving him an eerie look. "Need a ride?" he asked, his voice gravelly but warm. Megan hesitated for a moment, feeling unsure but desperate. With no other options, she nodded. "Yes, please. My car broke down, and I need to get to the nearest town." "Hop in," he said, pushing open the passenger door. Grateful, Megan climbed into the truck, shaking the water from her hair. As they drove, she tried to make conversation, but the old man was quiet, responding with short answers. The radio played a static-filled tune that made the atmosphere even creepier. Every now and then, she caught glimpses of his eyes in the mirror, their intensity unsettling. After what felt like a long time, the truck turned onto a narrow, unpaved road that wound through a dense forest. The trees loomed closer, their branches scratching at the windows like bony fingers. Megan's unease grew with each passing moment. "Is this the way to town?" she asked, her voice trembling. The old man didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and creepy. "Not exactly, but don't worry, I'll take you home." Home. The words sent a chill down her spine. She hadn't mentioned where she lived. Megan's heart pounded as she tried to stay calm. "I don't understand. Where are you taking me?" The old man glanced at her, his eyes glinting in the dim light. "To a place where you belong." The truck came to a sudden stop in front of an old, decrepit house. It stood alone in the middle of the forest, its windows dark and lifeless. The sight of it filled Megan with deep, inexplicable dread. "Get out," the old man ordered. Terrified, Megan obeyed, stepping out into the rain. The old man followed, his presence looming behind her. She wanted to run, but her legs felt like lead. "Go inside," he said, pointing to the house. Megan shook her head. "No, please. I don't want to go in there." "You have to," he insisted, his voice now cold and unyielding. "It's where you belong." With no other choice, Megan walked up the creaking steps and pushed open the front door. The inside of the house was even worse than she had imagined. It was dark and musty, with cobwebs hanging from the ceiling and dust covering every surface. The air was thick with the smell of decay. As she ventured further inside, she noticed something strange. The house was filled with photographs of people, dozens of them, each one looking as scared as she felt. And in the center of them all was a large, framed photo of a young woman who looked strikingly like her. Megan's breath caught in her throat. She turned to find the old man standing in the doorway, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "Who are they?" she whispered, pointing to the photographs. "Lost souls," he replied. "People who wandered into the forest and never came out." Megan's eyes widened in horror. "Why do they look like me?" The old man stepped closer, his face twisted into a sinister smile. "Because they are you. Every one of them." Panic surged through her as the realization hit. She tried to run, but the house seemed to shift and twist around her, its walls closing in. The old man's laughter echoed in her ears as darkness enveloped her. Suddenly, the house lit up with a soft, eerie glow. Megan found herself in a long hallway lined with mirrors. Each mirror reflected not only her current terrified self, but also different versions of her. Older, younger, some wearing different clothes, but all sharing the same fear-stricken expression. The old man's voice echoed through the hall. "This is where your soul is bound," forever repeating the same night, the same terror. She ran down the hallway, the reflections mocking her with every step. Doors appeared on either side, each one leading to different rooms filled with nightmarish scenes. In one, she saw herself tied to a chair, a shadowy figure approaching with a cruel smile. In another, she was trapped in a small box, the walls closing in on her. Megan finally burst into a room that looked like a twisted version of her childhood home. The walls were covered with peeling wallpaper, and the furniture was old and decrepit. She saw a little girl sitting in the corner, clutching a tattered doll. The girl looked up, and Megan gasped. It was her younger self. "Help me," the girl whispered, tears streaming down her face. Megan reached out, but her hand passed right through the girl. She screamed in frustration, her voice echoing through the house. The old man appeared behind her, his eyes gleaming with a malevolent light. "You can't help her," he said. "You can't change what has already been set in motion." Megan backed away, her mind racing. There had to be a way out. She couldn't be trapped here forever. She thought of the photographs, the countless faces that resembled her own. There had to be a connection, a reason. In a sudden moment of clarity, Megan realized that the house was feeding on their fear. The more terrified they were, the stronger it became. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to calm down. She had to confront her fear, to face whatever it was that held her here. She turned to the old man, her eyes narrowing with determination. "I'm not afraid of you." The old man laughed, a sound that reverberated through the house. "You will be." But Megan held her ground, focusing on her breath, on the steady rhythm of her heart. The house seemed to shudder, its walls trembling as if reacting to her defiance. The old man's smile faltered, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "You can't break free," he hissed. "This place is a part of you." Megan shook her head. "No, it's not. It's a nightmare, a lie." With a final, deep breath, she closed her eyes and imagined herself back in her car, the rain tapping gently on the roof. She visualized the road ahead, leading to safety, to freedom. The house around her began to dissolve, the darkness lifting. When she opened her eyes, she was standing back on the road, her car in front of her. The old pickup truck was gone, and the storm had passed. Dawn was breaking, the first rays of sunlight piercing through the clouds. Megan climbed into her car, her hands trembling as she turned the key. The engine roared to life, and she pulled onto the road, heading towards the rising sun. She didn't look back, not wanting to see if the house was still there. As she drove, she felt a sense of liberation, of having faced something dark and come out stronger. But the memory of the house and the old man's sinister smile lingered in the back of her mind, a reminder of a nightmare she hoped never to revisit. Yet, in the deepest part of the forest, the old house stood silent, waiting. The photographs on the wall remained unchanged, each one a testament to the souls it had claimed. And in the center, Megan's picture hung, her eyes wide with fear, a new addition to the gallery of the lost. Megan kept driving, but something felt off. The trees seemed denser, the sky darker despite the dawn. She looked at the road ahead and realized it looked unfamiliar, more winding and narrow than before. Panic rose within her. She tried to reassure herself that it was just the lingering fear playing tricks on her. After hours of driving, Megan found herself back at the same spot where her car had broken down. The old pickup truck was there, the old man leaning against it, waiting. "Welcome home," he said, his voice echoing with a finality that sent shivers down her spine. Megan screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the forest. She was trapped, the nightmare starting over, the cycle unbroken. The house had claimed another soul, its walls whispering with the voices of the damned, forever repeating their eternal terror. And deep within the forest, the house stood silent, waiting for its next visitor. The photographs on the wall remained, each one a testament to the souls it had claimed. Megan's picture was now among them, her eyes wide with fear, forever trapped in a place she thought she could escape. The house had not given up its grip, for in the world of shadows, nothing ever truly ends.